Well, hello, welcome, and it's welcome back from us, Series 4 of the ESPC show. It's Paul, and as ever, it's...
Megan.
You have a nice summer?
Yes, I did have a nice summer. It was nice. I wasn't away anywhere nice, so the weather here didn't really treat me very well. But
didn't treat anyone very well anywhere, I think. But and we snuck a few shows in at the Fringe.
Yes, we did. We saw a few. So it was really good, and the Fringe is well and truly over. Back to normality in Edinburgh.
I can get my coffee and Pret now. Well, thank you. But apart from that, the market's done some things over summer, and we're going to talk about some of that today, aren't we, I think?
Yeah, so first episode back, same as season 2, we are just going to have a chat through what the market's been like. We're going to talk about the whole of 2024, though. We're not just going to talk about the summer months, because Paul... he may regret this now, but he did a predictions video at the end of 2023. So we're going to talk about how many of those may have come true so far.
Yeah.
And then, what happened over the summer while we were on a little hiatus.
Let's go back, Do you know what? I was going to put on the same jumper. It was a burgundy jumper, if I remember.
Oh, it's well too warm.
Spoke to the wardrobe department and they were like, go over here today, Paul. So here we are. Yeah, so shall we...
let's kick off.
Let's reminisce.
If you haven't already watched, you can go back and watch. We'll pop a link in the show notes to Paul's prediction video. But we're going to watch that back now and kind of comment on what Paul got right and what Paul may have not gotten so right. The first thing that you mentioned, Paul, was that we spoke about the interest rates and how we anticipated that there would be a drop in the interest rates. But let's hear what you said.
So I think the first thing, Megan, is let's look at the macro picture, the things that we see. I think we will see interest rates. I mean, we've seen 14 consecutive rises. Now we've seen a few pauses. I think next year we might start to see a reduction in the interest rate, but that's probably not going to come about until probably summertime. Maybe May could be the earliest, I think, that it gets reviewed.
So that was your prediction. You said summertime, but then said May.
I know. Why did I have to say that?
So we did see an interest rate reduction in July.
31st of July.
Yeah.
We saw the rate come down 0.25%, just sitting at 5%. I think prior to that, I think the Bank of England we're still wrestling with this cost of services. And wage inflation, which were the two things that were keeping sort of inflation artificially high. Taylor Swift was mentioned as a reason because of the cost of hotels when she was in town, and I think they wanted to just see that play out before they made the decision, but it was close, 5-4. But we've seen our first cut. I guess later we'll talk about what we expect for the rest of the year. So I'll say no more at this stage.
Okay, But so you did predict summertime, which I think we, May didn't feel like summer this year. So we'll say that was a correct prediction. Right. So we'll move on to your next prediction.
Thanks, Megan. Good. I think, again, in the macro picture, lettings market still will be tight. We've got, as you know, we've got the sort of the rent cap in place. The market's very tight. There's a real lack of supply there.
You did predict that we would continue to see that lack of properties in the lettings market. You mentioned the rent cap. You didn't predict that the rent cap would be lifted, but
which it kind of has and kind of has. I mean, we still have rent control, so the spectre of that is still in place.
Yeah.
I think that is denting confidence for new investments. And as a consequence of that, we have a real shortage of properties available for rent still. And we'll hear from Nikki later in our series just about exactly how bad things are. But it's safe to say there's a real shortage of available properties for rent, particularly at the sort of £1,000. I can't believe I'm saying that as a rent, but that level up to 1,000 is where there's a real huge amount of competition and very, very little supply.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll move on to your next prediction.
I think firstly, if we look at sales volumes, I would suggest that we'll see it being similar to this year, which is, it's down on the last couple of years. The mania, the sort of post-COVID pent-up demand, that's sort of dissipated now. So we are back to 2019 levels or so, and I think that will continue.
So we spoke about sales levels being a continuation on last year and back to pre-COVID levels. How are we seeing that?
I think sales, to be honest, if there's one where I think we're slightly out, sales have been a lot better than I think everyone envisaged. Certainly if we look at the last house price report for the quarter, May to July, sales were up 22% on the previous year. So we're seeing a lot more sales. Key reasons, I think there's more stock So there's more choice for people. I think sellers are a bit more realistic in what price they're prepared to accept. And again, I'm sure we'll be talking about that later. So yeah, I think sales feels like we are, the general activity level's gone up. Listings are up as well. And I say stock's up. So yeah, it's probably one, I'd give myself a 5 on 10 for that one, I think.
Yeah, but I think I guess we've been incorrect in, we were maybe a bit more cautious of our prediction.
I think there's an element of responsibility when you do these sort of forward-looking statements, and clearly what you don't want to do, and what I would never want to be accused of is trying to overhype the market and just maybe you've come out and said, oh, we think sales will be up 20% this year. It does feel like you are sort of shrilling and ramping things a bit. So in saying that, I still believe we would have seen a fairly stable level, but it certainly is clear that there's a lot more sales than anyone anticipated. Yeah,
absolutely. And we'll go on to your final prediction, Paul.
Is this about Tranmere Rovers getting promoted? No, I don't think it's that one. We have seen more supply as the year's gone on, so the stock on ESPC is up 35-40%. Again, in 2024, I'd expect that to be the same. I think we'll still see a lot of choice out there, and potentially maybe a better bargain. You might get a better bargain next year than you've got this year because there is more choice. And I think we're also seeing, as we've discussed on the podcast, more properties coming to market as fixed price. So, that's a price that you can either offer or take a shot at and offer lower. And just talking to our firms in the last couple of weeks, what's clear is that people are now, because there is more choice, they're coming in and making an offer with the view as well, if we don't get that flat, there's one down the road that we can go and offer on, which is very similar. So, we are seeing offers below the asking price. And again, that will have an overall impact on the average sale price that's achieved and the premium that's being paid.
So we spoke about getting a bargain. Do you think buyers are going to get a bargain?
I think they're getting more of a bargain than they got last year. I think the average sale price, again, if you take that house price report for the quarter May to July, average sales price is pretty much the same as last year.
Yeah.
But what's changed is the premium. So the price that you're paying over the home report to secure that property, 102.4%. So it's less than it was last year. So to answer your question, yes, I think people are paying less of a premium. So therefore they are getting a slightly better bargain if if there is such a thing when you look at the house values. I should add contributing factors to that. Stock is up. I think when we did the original predictions, it was 35-40%. It's now about 25% because a lot of that stock's been mopped up by more sales. But listings are up 9.2% on year as well. So just that slight, not even an oversupply, but just more supplies mean that it's kept the market slightly in balance. I think we've got we've used this word quite a few times in our report, and it was used by a couple of firms in their commentary this week. The market feels a bit more stable. Things are quite stable in terms of pricing, and as I say, we're not seeing that sort of real premium having to be paid. Things feel slightly calm, but plenty of activity out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think in summary of that, your predictions were pretty good.
There you go.
Pretty good, Paul. So I guess now we wanted to chat about more recent times.
Yes.
The period, more specifically, we're going to cover the period May to July. That's the data we have right now. We don't quite have August data yet.
Got a feeling for August, but let's keep to the facts. Yeah.
So Paul, how has the market been performing while we've been away?
Okay. Well, I know you're a big Swiftie, so it definitely wasn't a cruel summer for the property market. Or for those that remember, it was Bananarama did a song called Cruel Summer way before Taylor Swift, but that's another story. What would I say? I think we had a debate about will there be a summer lull, and when we did the digest, we were talking about this could be the year we're at a crossroads where we see a lull, where we'll see the market quiet down over summer. In short, we saw a lull of probably 2 weeks in June, and the last 2 weeks of June were a little bit quieter. The first weeks of the summer holidays, and then everyone was off. We still saw sales, but we didn't see many listings. Since then, I think it's just really come back with a vengeance. So, speed of sale, 21 days, so incredibly brisk.
Yeah.
Sales up for the quarter, as you described, May to July, 22.2%. Listings up 9.2%. So, general activity is back, and there's a lot of it. So, this seasonality, I think, is just not here this year. I'd say we had maybe 2 weeks of it, but since then it's been very much, full on. I think the sentiment's shifting as well. I think the interest rate reduction was almost turbocharged things a little bit. I think there was speculation that was coming. We're seeing the mortgage market had already reacted to that. We're seeing sub 4% mortgages now, so things feel more attractive if you're a buyer. And I think there's a sector of the market who are buying because they can't rent anything, they can't find anything.
We're really something that we'll probably touch on later is this kind of idea that chains are really coming back in as well. We're seeing a lot more chains in the market, and the kind of buyers that really help those chains are first-time buyers.
They are the key that unlocks the door.
We're having a first-time buyer event which is actually fully booked now. We've had so much interest in that, so you can definitely tell first-time buyers are coming back.
I think they see a window, don't they? Because I'm not saying, and again, we're not here to ramp anything. Where we see prices rise again, I think until we fundamentally fix the supply issue, we probably will. Mm-hmm. But there's a great opportunity now because, as I say, rates have fallen. We may get another rate cut. It's a great time if you're a first-time buyer, I think, because that premium you had to pay, you're not having to pay right now. Yeah,
and I think that is makes such a big difference to first-time buyers, because when we're talking in real terms, if they're looking at a few years ago, and some people are paying 10% over home report valuation. If you're buying a £200,000 property, where are you getting an extra £20,000 on top of your deposit? It's it's a huge ask, and I think first-time buyers are seeing that.
I'd agree. That moment. And I think again another barometer that, Megan, would be the LIFT scheme, which is a scheme that the government brought out, and like it's been with the past times. Literally, it was launched, then within a few weeks it was closed because it was massively oversubscribed, and that funding is gone. And I think with regret, I don't think we'll see that again come back for another 12 months at least, if at all. So it just shows you the pent-up demand that's out there.
Yeah, and let's talk a little bit about change. We can just touch on that. That's something that we've noticed from our solicitor estate agents at ESPC have spoken about how they're seeing more and more purchases subject to sale of their own property. So what would your what's your kind of thoughts on that?
I've worked on both sides of the sort of line, if you like. I've worked in England and Wales, and I've worked in Scotland, and in England and Wales, chains are extremely common. And when I used to work on a estate agency many years ago, you could have a really bad day because you could have a sale and there'd be 7 other associated sales with it. The buyer pulls out, and suddenly, like a deck of cards, that all falls over. And I think there's a huge amount of frustration and dissatisfaction with the sort of buying of property in England and Wales, not so much in Scotland. And I think part of that is because we've always had a situation where, there's a bit more certainty earlier with missives. And generally we've generally avoided many chains, but we are finding they are becoming more common. I'm not a huge fan for the reasons I've just described. I think if there's a positive, I think first-time buyers probably put themselves in a box seat, in as much that if it's them or somebody's got a property to sell, my advice, I'm sure any solicitor or estate agent's advice would be, go with the certainty, go with the person who can proceed. And I think we've heard quite a few stories, we may hear some more in this series, of solicitor or estate agents recommending to their clients, look, it's a few £1,000s less, but they've sold. And they can move. Whereas this person's got one to sell, it's not even on the market, so that could take time. So it's horses for courses. It's not always the right thing to take the person that can move immediately, because some sellers may want a longer time to move. But if on balance, I think it's better, and any advice I would give to a seller is to sell first, because I think you're in a strong position. And there's a lot of choice out there these days. A lot more choice.
I think when we say sell first, a lot of homeowners or sellers would tense up and think, but what if I can't find something?
Agree an offer first. And then be honest and say it could take me a while. It could take me 2, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. We had a product called Unlock, which was about that. It was about giving clarity to a buyer. So if you were buying off me, Megan, I would say, okay, great, taking your offer, Megan, but you need to give me 3 or 6 months now to find some. Because I need time. I want something very specific, so bear with me. And I think it's just good communication, but I would always advocate sell first.
Yeah, absolutely. So there was a lot of other things that happened over the last 3 months. You mentioned Taylor Swift boosted the economy, but we also had an election.
We did.
Which doesn't really directly affect the property market here because it's a devolved issue. So the Scottish Government are but they run the housing policies here. But did the election? Has the election affected the outcome of the election, the Labour government? Has that affected anything in the property market here?
Not immediately. I think we may see possibly a softening of position. I mean, clearly we've seen the SNP and the Greens sort of part ways, shall we say. So I think we may see a softening of some of those policies, rent controls perhaps. That's in the housing bill, which we'll see soon. There's not been any real radical change, and yet there remains a housing emergency in Scotland. Again, fundamental supply issue across all tenures. Nothing apparent at the moment that I would say. Certainly, I think Labour down south have really come out strong around we need to build more homes and are putting measures in place to do that.
Yep.
I mean, I think the only other thing which has sort of happened again, which is probably UK-wide, is there's been some small developments on the cladding side of things. But again, that's not really that specific to the question you asked me.
No, yeah. Well, that was something I was going to bring up.
Okay.
I mean, last week, the week before we were recording this, there was the huge fire in London, in Dagenham. Yeah. And I just, when we were talking about preparing for this episode, I thought, is this something that's going to maybe push cladding again to, I mean, we're not aware of cladding's involvement in this instant, but is that going to push that to the forefront again? I
mean, it's still a risk to life. A lot of buildings still have cladding. I think things are getting done. I think properties are getting fixed. Personally, I think the rate of the time it's taken for us to get to where we are has been just glacial. You know, we if you think about when Grenfell happened and where we are now, some of the things we will see soon. And we'll see a central register of buildings. So if I was selling a property in the, again, medium future, there'll be a single building assessment done on the entire building. And I'll be able to have sight of that as a seller, and certainly a buyer would be made aware of that, and that could help lenders make a decision. And it can certainly give the seller comfort that the property can be sold, whereas at the moment you've got to get an individual report on your own property generally. So it's slight change. So that's going to come in. I think the new build developers signing up to a scheme, which I think is good, again, voluntary, but very much around standards and doing the right thing. And there's also the remediation fund to get this work done, and government's going to have more powers in the future to actually enforce these things as well. Yeah. But we should be a lot further forward. And we should absolutely learn the lessons of this. And again, in one of the future episodes, we'll talk about energy efficiency. And it's very important that any work that's done is done to a standard, and we agree what that standard is, and it's only done by registered contractors, because we need to avoid any further issues on that sort of front. Yeah, absolutely. And we know that there has been some incidences with cladding related things in Edinburgh as well. So the sooner we can get a resolve to a solution to that problem, the better. Yeah, and I think if to any homeowner out there that is concerned, either talk to your factor or talk to a solicitor or estate agent who'd be happy to help. And I say we're had some good connection with government on this, so we're happy to help where we can, really. But it really does need drive from governmental level, really. Yeah, absolutely. So the last thing we're going to touch on in this episode is a report that we've just released from ESPC about where ESPC buyers come from. Yes. Which I thought was a really interesting read, and just for anyone who's a bit nosy, it's quite good as well, I thought. Who isn't when it comes to property? Everyone's nosy, isn't it? So in this report, Laura in our marketing team, she pulled together the report looking at the geography of all the regions we cover, and then who is buying in those areas, which I think is really interesting. So we'll start off with in Edinburgh, the city of Edinburgh. We saw that 60% of homes in Edinburgh were purchased by people who already live in Edinburgh. Yeah. I think there's a bit of a thought from a lot of people that a lot of buyers are coming in from abroad. I think there's certainly a myth that's trotted out there. I mean, it is an international city, don't get me wrong, there are buyers coming from abroad. It's a small percentage, isn't it? Yeah, outside of the UK it's 10%. Yeah. So it's it's 1 in 10. It's not insignificant. Yeah. For a capital city, that's not really unusual. Yeah. I suppose possibly we're in the data if somebody's from abroad but is renting here and then buys, they may count as a local buyer. Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't surprise any of us, does it? And I think there's a common theme that generally people who live locally buy locally. Yeah. Be nice to everyone in Sainsbury's because it just might be your next buyer. Yes, exactly, absolutely. But we do see that a lot of people can
will actually buy within the same postcode as them. So yeah, when you're mentioning being nice to your neighbours, they might just be the person who's going to buy your house.
Could well be. And I think if they're not buying in the same postcode, often it's for monetary reasons. If you're a first-time buyer, you might rent there, but you can't afford to stay there, so you move somewhere else. Or second steppers who there's just no, you live in a 2-bedroom flat, but there's no 3-bedroom semi, so you have to move further out or wherever. But we know, a third of the searches on the ESPC.com are what we call hyperlocal. They're getting right down to, show me properties in Haymarket or show me, and it's really at that granular level, which I have to say I think we do rather well. So.
Yes, no, absolutely. And then I thought another interesting stat was 53% of Midlothian homes that have been sold since January 2019 were sold to buyers from Edinburgh. So that's that kind of market that you spoke about, that we are presuming that is the kind of second stepper market. People are looking for a bit more space, moving to Midlothian, getting a bit more for their money. But 53% of,
it's quite a lot,
buyers.
Isn't it? And I suppose again it goes back to what we've said again on the show before now. Sort of post-COVID, I think there's been that shift where people like, I want green space, I want a garden, etc., etc. So the Borders is hugely benefited from that, and the Lothians as a whole, and we know the market in East Lothian's even fiercer. That's probably where we have seen a shortage of property consistently, because it comes on itself, because people want to live in these areas. Yeah,
and actually there was slightly less local residents purchasing in East Lothian, 40% rather than 60% in Edinburgh. That
underlines the point.
And then the Borders, we saw 46% of properties were bought between January 2019 and July 2024 were purchased by current Borders residents as well.
Yeah, and we did some supplementary data actually, because we were asked by one of the firms down there. They said, that's interesting, but they thought it'd be more pronounced. And when we looked at the market over 400,000, it's pretty much a third of buyers were coming from Edinburgh and that sort of area, and a third were coming from England and Wales. So, it just shows you the difference, once because I think a lot of first-time buyer stuff, generally, in the Borders, you live close to your family, you'll stay in that area, but at that upper level, it's not a plug for the Borders, but you get a lot for your money. We were talking about this the other day.
Yes, absolutely. So you do get a lot more. So and that £400,000 mark, if you have, that's your kind of budget. The house you can get in the Borders for 400,000 versus, for example, London.
Oh yeah,
it's like chalk and cheese.
It's night and day. Yeah, and ditto Dumfries and Galloway, Southwest. Same again, and again similar mix where. You're seeing people come across the border. It's a lifestyle decision. You sell up in London, you can come up here, you can retire, and you can get a cracking property. So yeah,
absolutely. So that was kind of the key stats that we were going to chat through. I don't know if there's anything else you want to mention before we head on with the rest of the season.
Do you want a forward prediction?
Oh, of course, yes. Let's predict the back half of the year.
Okay, what are we going to see? Okay, we always start with the macro stuff. I think we will see one more interest rate cut. I don't know when. Maybe I shouldn't predict, but we've got 19th of September, 7th of November, or 19th of December. Oh, Happy Christmas.
19th of December would be a good
It would be good. I don't know if it's a bit late. I don't know if by that point, I've got a feeling we might see it we might see this time, this September, I think.
September.
Don't know. Depends. The figures are still worried about cost of services, but it is cooling. But I think whichever way, we will see another cut.
Yeah.
Is that already priced into the rates that we're seeing out there? Maybe. So that one thing will happen. I think there's enough sort of fuel in the tank now for the market for the rest of the year. Yeah. Loads of listings, plenty of buyers. So I think the market's going to have a really strong run in. Unless something happens on a world stage that we're just not seeing, I think we'll have a very strong run into the end of the year. I won't give you any predictions for 2025. That's way off. And I suppose if I had the hope for the market is that we fundamentally find a way to fix the supply issue, across all tenures, across rented, across affordable, across, private sector. I think we just need more property.
And I think we'll start to see that increase hopefully sooner rather than later, because now is the time where people who want to move before Christmas start to think about bringing their property to market.
Would you move in the last week of? Would you move just before Christmas?
I moved into my flat on the 16th of December.
Did you?
Yeah. So that was still 2 weeks, almost a week and a half before.
Did you have
Christmas.
your tree up in the other place, or did you wait till
No,
you get in?
we had no tree that year,
tree,
so quite depressing. But I thought it was. But again, it was we had a very short window because the seller wanted to move before Christmas. So it was something like 8 weeks we got everything done.
I think it does happen. And I think now you're getting solicitors saying either you can move then or write it off and it's going to be mid-January, you know. Because we do have that sort of almost like shutdown period, don't we, between Christmas and New Year when things go into a bit of a halt. If one solicitor's off on the other side, things can't happen, so to speak. But I'd say I think we've got every reason to feel like we're going to have a good run into the end of the year.
Absolutely, and we are also going to have a good run of podcast episodes.
I know, even better, full series.
Yes.
And lots of downloads. And I think, did you tell me we've doubled our subscribers?
Yes, on YouTube.
So that's my mum and my dad now. So.
I think it's going to be a really great podcast podcast season. We are doing things slightly differently.
Well, you've got your own spin-off as well now,
We've got a spin-off podcast now. So if you know any, our kind of data when we were looking at the podcasts that were most popular, our first-time buyer podcast episodes are always super popular. However, they're not the people that tune in week to week on this podcast. So what we've decided to do is create two platforms. One is for the week-to-week subscribers of this, and we're going to be talking more about market commentary, because a mortgage market and lettings market and what our solicitors are seeing across the different areas, because that's what we've seen that you guys like. And then we've got our spin-off of the first-time buyers. So the ESPC First Timers Club.
I know. And actually, if there is any first-timers out there, you still want more guests, don't you?
Yes, absolutely.
So there's a plea there if anyone wants to come on. And you're really good, I have to say.
Oh, thanks, Paul. So those episodes are going to go out on Monday on the YouTube channel and on the separate podcast feed. So we'll pop all the links in the show notes if you're listening. So we've got lots and lots of content coming out, and we're really looking forward to this season as well.
I've missed it. It's good to be back.
Perfect. Well, that's a wrap from us.
That's our first wrap of Series 4. Thanks for listening. Again, we really appreciate you taking the time out to do so. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do. If you want any more information on anything we discussed today, you'll find it on espc.com. But we'll see you next time. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye.